Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. I hope you can hear me okay. We just had a few technical difficulties as we was trying to set this up. Thankfully, it seems all okay now. So as ever, we're live today with this webinar, joined by Fliss, who's going to talk all about customer journey. There's the chat box, there's the Q&A box at the bottom, so obviously feel free to put any questions and comments in there, and obviously between myself and Fliss, we'll answer them at appropriate times, if that's okay with you, Fliss.
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Fliss, to do your thing. And if anyone's got any questions, like I said, put them in the box, and yes, enjoy.
Right, let's get this started then. So obviously I work in branding. My background is as a designer, and people probably think, why is Fliss talking about customer journey? I worked at Mamas and Papas for 4 years, and really got involved in the whole brand, and that's understanding the customer and communicating to them. So this is where customer journey comes in, to make sure that you're saying and doing and showing the right things at the right time. So that's where my knowledge has come from, and I find it really useful for my clients because it means that you can talk to your customers in the right way at the right time. So this is today's topics. This is what I'm going to cover. So we're going to go through what a customer journey is, the stages of the journey, how to define it. I'll show an example of a customer journey so you can actually see it in action, which is always useful. And then next steps for you going away to pull together your own, and we can discuss any thoughts or questions at the end. But if anybody's got any questions throughout, I'm happy to answer it, because I'm going to probably cover quite a lot of things. So you might want to shout up when I've said something. Right then. So what is a customer journey? So it basically maps out your audience how they find you, what they're looking for at each stage of the journey, because from the research stage to the final purchase stage, their needs are quite different, and they're looking for different things. How they interact with you at each stage and where they interact with you, so you can make sure that you're marketing to them in the right way at each stage. It just clarifies every stage, so their needs are changing throughout the journey, and you can recognize how to add value to your existing customers as well. It's not just about getting those new customers, it's about retaining existing ones and keeping them happy. So that's what a customer journey is. So what does a customer journey do? So I thought this statistic was pretty useful to show, because you basically have to show your customers that you understand them. That's what it's all about. So it gives you focus in knowing what to say at each time, each stage on the journey, because what somebody needs to hear from you when they're researching is really different to what they need to hear from you when they're working with you. It helps you understand them better. And if you're busy, it allows your service to be consistent, busy times and not busy times, so that every customer is getting the service exactly the same, whatever sort of situation you're in the business. And also on that, if you've got multiple people in the business, it makes sure that everybody's following the same processes and everybody's doing the same things. And then it also helps you to not waste time marketing that's not necessary. So your marketing can be a lot more targeted for your customers at every stage they're at. So these are the stages of your customer journey. So I'm just going to briefly talk through these, and then later on today I'm going to show an example of a customer journey, and I'll talk through these in a bit more detail. So the awareness stage. This is where they're researching, and they've got a problem that they want to fix, and they might not necessarily know they need you at this point. They just know that they have a problem that needs solving. Then you've got inquiry. They've done a bit of research, they're exploring their options. They're not just exploring your business, they're exploring other businesses, comparing your services and working out what they need from that particular type of business. Then you've got trial, and this is probably also where you could have the quoting phase. So trial is all about getting them to be able to understand what it's like working with you, having that experience. And if they can experience your services for free, even if it's just like a half-hour trial in some way, then that makes their decision easier to purchase. Because if they're experiencing you, but they're not getting the chance to experience your competitors, then they already know what you're about. So purchase, it's not just about getting customers in, it's about making them happy when you've got them and retaining them. So how do you give them a warm welcome? You need to prove to them that they've made the right decision, because just because they've purchased from you doesn't mean they can't walk away at that point. And then you need to retain them. So you need to keep them happy. So how do you build relationships with your customers? Defining that is really, really important. And then that's what turns them into advocates. So that's the final stage. So you want to make them your biggest fan. You want them to shout about you. You want them to basically recommend you to others and say, oh, you know, I loved working with Mike, it was brilliant. Because really that's free marketing. And that's the best type of referral, because it's all built on trust. So they've done a lot of work for you. Right, so now, well, I'm going to ask if there's any questions actually, before I go into how to define it. Don't know if there's been any come through, Mike.
Not at the moment, Fliss, but I'll let you know if anything comes through as we go along.
Ooh. So I'm going to talk you through how to define your customer journey. You can get really fancy customer journeys designed up with all sorts of graphics and things, but you can keep it simple. So I use a spreadsheet as a simple form. If anybody's interested in getting this spreadsheet template, just drop me a line afterwards and I can send it to you. Or you can just use a pen and paper, map it out in pen and paper. Especially if there's a few of you in the business, that might be a good way to do it. All get together to do it together, because it's important to get the key stakeholders in a business to all do it together, so everyone's bought in, and then you know what the different needs are for the different departments as well. When I worked at Mamas and Papas, we actually had a workshop day, so had lots of people from sales, from store, from marketing, from creative, which I was a part of, from product design. And we all got together and we mapped out who our customer was and how they shop and their needs. And it was really good because everybody in the business bought in, basically. So that's how to define it. These are the things we need to consider. Not all customer journeys cover this, but the reason why I put in all these points is because it covers quite a few different areas of the business. It's not just to do with your marketing, it's to do with your sales, it's to do with your processes within the business. So first of all, define the touch points. So this is at each stage of the journey, where are they coming into contact with you, whether that's in person, through your marketing, through your emails, proposals. Where do they come into contact with you? How do they understand your business? Is it all consistent? So it's just defining where they do that. Then we look at what they're doing at each point. Now, this is quite interesting because you can understand how involved in the process they are, because they might be really busy at one stage. So you're not necessarily on their mind so much. Early on, they're really involved because they've got this problem that needs fixing. Are they as involved later on? And how do you deal with that? What are they thinking? So this is really key to try and understand what they're thinking, because you can understand what they're thinking about their needs and what they're thinking about you, and you can consider how you might be able to basically encourage them to work with you, or to do certain things. And then how they are feeling. So this is a really important one, because people, they basically buy on emotions, and it's a big driver. The emotional brain actually overrules the rational brain in many purchases, and understanding how they're feeling at each point is really important. So
absolutely, Fliss, I once read some research into that I think it's something like around 92% of all buying decisions are based on emotion, not on rational decisions. Like there's certain things that we buy, we buy milk and bread and things like that, and they're fairly mundane, but just about everything else we do, there's something there that's an emotional decision rather than practical.
Yeah, it is. And I always thought this was more to do with products, actually, but I've found a statistic here that I've got when I was pulling this together. So there was a study carried out by Google and some other people in 2013, and it showed that B2B buyers are more emotionally connected to the brands and businesses they purchase from than consumers are, which actually surprised me, because you'd think it would be the other way around. You think if you're B2B, you'd be considering all the options. So it says of the 9 B2B brands in the study, it revealed that 7 of them had emotional connections with more than 50% of their customers. So as service businesses, this is so important.
Do you think this might be, Fliss, that in the B2B world, generally they'll have a salesperson in the job, and that might be a company owner or whatever it might be, but they're dealing with that person. So there's an element of like and trust in that person is just as important as the product or service itself.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think we forget that what we do as service businesses is always all about working with people, isn't it? So people, we get attached to people, and we either like somebody or we're not so keen on them, and that can make or break a decision. So it's really important, and it's mad, isn't it, that your feelings can just overrule all this rational thought. Somebody might be a better choice, but like as in terms of the business, but that person in the other business really got you and understood you, and you had a really good connection, so you go with the person in the other business.
No, I absolutely agree. I see Pete's made a comment in the comments about how important stories are. Well, obviously, people who know Pete, his background in selling, and how stories are so important, and you have to create that emotion and potentially pain for a business to business person as well, which is
definitely. I mean, that's why I put this. I love this quote that I put up, and it just describes what branding is really. It's all about your stories and your emotions and your feelings, and telling that story in the right way, telling your story in the right way at each stage is the most important thing. It really is. Right. Yeah. So it's quite hard to get to grips with people's feelings. So what you need to do is, before you start your customer journey, you need to get to grips with the problems. So you need to define what your audience's pain points are, because as I've said here, your audience might not know they need you. So I find personally, a lot of people come to me where they've got a marketing problem. The marketing's not working, or they don't know how to market themselves. And you wouldn't necessarily think, oh, I need branding, I need a new, I need to sort my brand out. Because they're probably actually at that stage researching, how do I market myself? How do I market myself effectively? So it's just defining what their problems are at the beginning, and that helps you then understand how to talk to them, especially at the beginning stage of your customer journey. And the key thing is, you need to talk to them about their problems, not what you do, because they're not researching what you do, they're researching their problems. So let me just... So I've shown an accountant's customer journey because I thought everyone knows what an accountant does. Majority of us have accountants, and we can understand it in action, and it's a service business, so it's really important to sort of understand something that is relevant to us. So these are the pain points. What are their pain points? I've detailed a few here. Obviously, they're clients' pain points. They've got many, many, many different pain points. So I've not listed them all. So you might have a big business saying we're not getting enough value from our accountant, or you might have somebody who's just started out saying I don't understand business finance, I'm setting up and I need help, or a business saying we've outgrown our accountant. For example, another one might be I want to go digital and my accountant doesn't do that. So if the accountant knows what their audience's pain points are, they can understand what they need to be saying to them at each point to get them in. You'll notice here that there's actually two different types of audience. You've got your sole trader who might be starting out, or somebody who's starting out a limited company but doesn't have a clue what they're doing. And then you've got probably a more experienced type of business. They're bigger and they've probably outgrown their accountant, or they need more. It's really important to define your pain points for each customer, and you probably want to do a different customer journey for each customer type. Because you might, if you've got big businesses and really small businesses, they've got completely different problems, and how you talk to them and where you talk to them will actually be different. So you can't cover all bases. So you might have your audience on LinkedIn might be bigger businesses, but you might speak to individuals just starting out, hobbyist businesses, for example, on Instagram or Facebook, because they're like more local marketing or a much smaller business. So what you need to say to them and what their problems are and why they might use you is completely different. Yeah, so. Right, so this is the awareness stage for the accountant, which I've plotted out. I've not plotted everything. Your customer journey might be really long, but I've just shown some examples. You've got your touch point here. So at this stage, the customer is researching what they need. They've got the problem. What do I need? How do I do it? For example, a sole trader might be thinking, how do I do it myself? But the bigger business might be thinking, I need a local accountant who handles bigger businesses who can help us regularly. So where do you find your audience? Where is your audience hanging out, basically? Do you find them through referrals, whether that's networking, your existing customers, partner businesses, and how do you manage the relationships with them? LinkedIn, is it Facebook, Google search, blogs, websites? So these are all the types of places that your audience will find you, but they're not necessarily looking for you, they're looking for their problem. So this is where you need to be talking, especially at the awareness stage, about what their problems are, because that's what they're researching. So they're talking to friends. As I said, sole trader for the accountant might be researching what they need, or they might be doing it themselves and working out how on earth to do it. But a bigger business, they probably actually know what they need more than the sole trader. So they're actually looking at local firms at this stage. But they are busy running the business as well. So they've got less time on their hands to do that research. And then what are they thinking? This is really interesting, because this is where you start writing down in your audience's perspective, and you can sort of understand what they are thinking at that stage. Completely different needs again. I've plotted this on the same one, but you'd have two separate journeys. And then what are they feeling? So often at the awareness stage, their feelings are quite I'm going to use the word negative. They feel a bit scared or out of the depth or unsure what to do, or they've had a bad experience. So it's all about nurturing at this stage, nurturing, understanding, being caring. There might be a bit of excitement in there for your audience, depending on what you do as a business. Every business is different. They might be really excited about starting up and doing something. So it's just really important to understand how they're feeling at each stage.
I think this is really interesting, going back to what we said about the emotional side of things, Fliss. I know I've done a lot of work with this myself, and I've kind of thought a lot about essentially what are they thinking, but less so about what they are feeling. And there's obviously, I think probably we all do it to a certain extent, but probably not consciously thought about it. I think that's something that's probably, I wonder if there's a lot of people in very similar positions to that. They've not really thought about that at this stage anyway.
Yeah, because you'd speak to them quite differently, and if you want to reassure people as well, and if somebody feels reassured, if they're scared or out of the depth, but they feel reassured, and they'll start to trust you, and that's what you want them to start doing. You want them to start trusting you and thinking, oh, but I felt really reassured, they understood my needs, blah 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 blah, and that's key.
And I guess that's important to know essentially what your role in this is, and what you're trying to do is, are you trying to get them excited? Are you trying to reassure them? Are you trying to comfort them? Whatever it might be, that's important to know, kind of essentially what you do for people.
Definitely. And we've all, we don't just have one emotion at that stage. So you might want to get them excited, but they need to be reassured as well. So it's learning that balancing act.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you've plotted these 4 touch points out, that's when you can start to work out your actions that you need to do in your business. So I've just done a few examples here. So for example, on your touch points, how are you leading them to value and not just to the homepage if they get into the website, because they're researching your problem? They're not researching, well, your bigger business might be researching local accountants, but they've often got a problem. How do I choose an accountant that knows how to move me on to making tax digital, for example? Can you start writing blogs on the subjects of what their concerns are? Because that's what they're going to be looking for at this stage. How do I do my taxes? How can you write blogs based on that? And use language they'll understand. So if you're working in an industry with lots of acronyms, definitely at the awareness stage, they don't have a clue what the acronyms mean, and it can be really baffling, and it'll put people off, to be honest with you. So if you're talking to them how they think and speak and what they understand, it'll be so much more accessible for them. Here, can you host any webinars? So you're starting to plot out business actions. Some of these actions might be processes that you need to put in place in the business as well. So, inquiry stage. How does your audience inquire with you? That's the question. Where do they come into contact through your inquiries? Do they pick up the phone? Do they email you? Via website or LinkedIn? How is the process streamlined? Because if there's two different people in the business and they pick it up in a different way, is there one way that's right or not? So defining that is really key. And what are they, what do they need to know at this stage to be able to purchase from you? So they're researching people, but then they're also trying to understand who they are and what they've got. So what do they need to know from you when they're sort of speaking to you at this point? And again, you started seeing more positive emotions here. They're getting interested. And how it should be, the further down your customer journey you get, the emotions should get better and better and better, because you want them to feel better and better about working with you. So you want them to improve because you're solving their problem. And again, I've plotted out some actions here. I've already discussed how you need to define your processes so that every person in the business follows them. If they're researching your firm, if they're looking for a local business, do you have a local Google profile or local SEO? Is it relevant to your business? If that is relevant to your business, maybe that's something that's time to start looking into, for example. I need a firm who understands my business. That's a big trust thing. So how can you boost trust? Do you do events and webinars? Maybe do a local area event or a webinar that lots of people can get to and understand what you do and learn from. And then listen to their needs and address their concerns at this stage, because they've done their research. They're now talking to you because they've done their research and they might have read a few of your blogs. So they're starting to know that you understand them, but show that you understand their needs because they're stressed and they've got this problem that needs fixing. So if you can address that problem and show how you can help them to sort that out, they're going to just keep trusting you. So I've put this as trial and quote. You might split this out into two separate boxes on your customer journey. Each business is different. There's the 6 sort of key stages, but you might have a few more stages within that depending on what you do. So these are some of the touch points. So who handles the trial and quoting stage, and is it the same for every customer? It should be. Do they get to try a webinar? And then what are the actions at the end of the webinar? So they've tried what you do. Is there a follow-up email, for example? Can they get downloadables from you to start the process off? So this is where they're really understanding their own needs and they're understanding your practice. And also it starts coming down to price, and they're talking to you about price and service needs and various things. And they're really analysing you at this stage. And as you can see, the feelings are getting more positive. They're starting to feel understood because you've demonstrated it, and they're feeling a bit more in control because they're getting closer to sorting their problem. And that's what you want them to be feeling. If they're getting a poor experience from you, they're probably feeling, no, this isn't working for me. And they're probably going to go with someone else. So yeah, again, actions. Are they the right fit for me? So is there a different process for different customer type? I touched on that. So you need to, the reason why I showed an accountant is because they've got sole traders and they've got limited companies. They have completely different needs and concerns. And if you're talking to your sole traders, in the way you talk to the experienced limited companies, they're probably going to feel baffled. They don't necessarily know what you're on about, and it's not really covering their needs. So it's understanding who exactly that customer is and how you need to speak to them, because there's a difference.
Fliss, we've had a question from Pete, if that's okay.
Yeah.
He's asked about you've mentioned obviously about things like free trials. Do you think that free trials are an important part of the customer journey?
If it's not relevant to your business, then no. I mean, Pete, that could be something along the lines of a half-hour discovery call where you're asking them questions and starting to understand their needs. It doesn't have to necessarily be a trial of your services. It can be trialing in the terms of talking to you about your needs and starting to try and say, well, okay, I can understand that. This is how we might be able to solve that. So they can start to see your thinking, really.
Could it also be, Fliss, something like, I don't know, a document, 5 top tips for improving your process, or whatever it might be, but it's kind of, it's understanding a bit more about what you do. You're adding a little bit of value, but obviously without giving away too much for free.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, that also, I've put downloadables in here, so that's a free trial, but that could come in at the awareness stage as well. So this might be something they find, so they're instantly at the trial stage because they're trialing you and your knowledge, because you're giving them something for free. But obviously downloadables, you don't want to give it all for free. So it's a starting point, isn't it? And they're starting to understand and they're starting to get a little bit from you and they find it useful. So yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, Pete.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, it doesn't have to be necessarily free work. Definitely not. Yeah, so you're looking to add some value to them so they can take it away and feel like they're going to get a lot from working from you. As I said, you might split this out. Your quoting process might be longer, so you might want to split that out into a separate journey. The accountant wouldn't, because they've got set costs, so it would probably be in the meeting and discussed in the meeting. So purchase. When you've got your customer, you don't want to lose them, and you don't want them to think that as soon as you've got them, they don't matter anymore. So can you have a process where they get a welcome email or a welcome phone call? Do you give them a welcome pack? What do you do when each new customer comes on board? Is there a way to document their details for you to then use ongoing in your marketing or automation process, for example? How do you do it for each customer at every time? This is where it gets interesting in what they're doing. They've found you. They're happy with their decision because they've got something from you. This is the point where they start focusing on their business, because in their eyes, right, I've sorted, I've got it. They're busy running their business. So how can you show them that you've got it all under control and you were the right decision? What are they thinking? Yeah, I hope I made the right choice might come in sometimes, but sometimes you might get, yeah, I made the right choice. And how do you show them that they did make the right choice? And their feelings are a lot more positive. So you need to back them up at this stage. So how do you give your customers a warm welcome? Is there a process? It might just be simply a phone call, I'm really pleased, or an email, or anything. And you want to wow them at this stage to make them really pleased with the decision, and they'll talk about it. Oh, well, so and so, when I joined, they sent me a book and it was really useful, and you know, it was amazing because I wasn't expecting it. They'll talk about these things. So retention, this is really key. So it's more expensive to get new customers. If you can retain them and keep them going, not only will they keep working with you, but then they'll refer you to others, and they are marketing your business for you. So the retention and the advocacy stage of your customer journey is really crucial, really, really crucial. So what do you do when you're working with them to make them feel reassured? And do you have a process in place? For example, do you set timings in place? Do you have regular reviews, which you would talk about early on before they've come on board with you, so they know, okay, so I'll have these regular reviews. Make sure you follow up and do what you say. Again, they're busy. They might be firefighting, they're running the business, but if you can show them that you've got it all under control and you don't need to worry about it, then they're really happy. The accountant's audience might be thinking, I need to understand what my profit is. I need to keep tabs on profits because of X, Y, Z, the year end's coming up. If you can give them that information before they actually are thinking about it, then they will really trust you. So it's showing your audience that you're on top of their business and you care about what they need.
So Fliss, we've had just before I go on, if you don't mind, we've had a question from Stuart, actually a really good one. So he's working with a new potential big prospect, done all the pricing, everything like that. Do you think it's worth sending a relevant book on maybe on one of his hobbies? Do you think that's appropriate to do so?
It might be. It depends on the business. You could send a book something related to the business and something useful for them, but if you've built up a relationship with your customers and it's a human, like it's a really personal relationship, then it might be really relevant. If you've not necessarily got that really strong relationship there, it might be a bit strange. But if that's really key part of your business and you sort of have a really strong relationship with your individual customers and you know lots about them, then it might be really relevant and it can prove that you aren't just about the business, you care about them as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Stuart's mentioned that it sounds like this customer doesn't really respond to kind of standard hospitality stuff. So it's one kind of common area they have. So it seems like he's quite cold, maybe the character, but that's just him. So I guess by the sound of it to me, that shows that you understand a little bit about him. You've obviously listened to something he said at some point, found out something about one of his hobbies, and you've paid attention, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I think that I agree, Mike, actually there, because you're showing that you've listened and you understand him as a person, not just him as a business. So that kind of says a lot about your process there, Stuart, actually building that relationship.
And it kind of shows that you care on a very human level.
Yeah, which is really important.
And I would be surprised, I don't know what the situation is, Stuart, but if you're in a competitive situation with other people, they're probably not doing those things. So anything that makes you stand out, surely, I would imagine is a good thing, Fliss.
Yeah, because people buy from people, don't they? So if you can prove that you've listened and it's not just a transactional thing, and you've listened over other people and you've built up that conversation, and you're not just going to talk work, you're gonna have a bit more of a conversation. I think it's definitely something that you could be doing, listening out for each client's individual hobbies, and even if it's just a case of just chatting to them about, oh, what did you do with your, I know you play football, how's it going? That sort of thing. Making sure that you talk to them regularly about these things to show that you understand them and know them well. Yeah. So actions are even more important in retention because, as Stuart was saying there, it's building up that relationship and showing that you care. So that might be on a more personal level, but then again, on a business level. So you need to prove that you are, when you've got a retained customer, especially an accountant, you might not hear from them regularly because they're doing things in the background. They're running your payroll, for example. But if they send you a monthly review or they ring you up every 3 months to have a chat about how it's going, you can show that they care, they care about you. And even though you're not thinking about it, you are on their mind. And that's key to being reassured and supported. And if you feel like they know what your business is doing all the time, you're going to be less likely to go elsewhere for their services. So, right, I've talked on retention and inquiry and trial. The final stage is advocacy. So this is where all your actions that you're doing throughout the rest of your customer journey come into play, really. What can you do to create advocates for your business? You want people to be referring you because it means that you don't have to go out and market yourself constantly because you're putting the work in with your customers and you're keeping them, and you've got that relationship and they're going to refer you. So what can you do? And all the different actions that you've plotted out pull into this. Do you do training sessions, webinars? Do they regularly see you consistently on social media and LinkedIn? So is this a case of, right, I've got a content plan, I'm plotting out blogs and I'm talking to my different audience streams at each point in these blogs? Do they recognize your posts? Do you catch up with them regularly? So what are they doing? You want them to be recommending you at this point. You want them to be going on Google, leaving you a review, or saying to people, oh, you need a new accountant? So-and-so is amazing. They really look after us. And they want them to be thinking really positively. I'd recommend them. I always see the content. They're experts. They know what I need before I need it. That is really, really key. So you want them to feel supported, happy, in control. And this is where all the different actions that you put in place for the rest of your journey comes in. So you shouldn't really have any actions for advocacy because the rest of your journey creates them. So before I move on to next steps, have we got any questions?
Yeah, so there's a couple of comments and a question as well. So Helen's mentioned kind of going on to your last point about being human and showing empathy and connection and listening has been so powerful for her in terms of getting repeat customers. She also mentions talking about rabbits. But no, joking aside, it's something that's relevant to individuals, and it's obviously having that human conversation is important. But we've had a question from Paula. How long would it take to put together a customer journey, and how much time do you think you need to typically dedicate to this on a weekly basis or a monthly basis to keep on top of it?
It can be something you start to do and gradually pull together, because obviously it takes a bit of time to understand what processes you already have in place. That actually leads me on to my next steps quite well, Paula. So I might just go to these. So there's different stages and it's really easy to start. That's why I use a spreadsheet. A couple of hours, 3 hours maybe, just to get down what you do that's existing is quite straightforward, really. But I think the first point you need to start on is understanding your customer pain points, because then you're defining your different audiences. Because without knowing that, it's quite hard to do your customer journey. So I think that's key. So that could be done simply talking to your existing customers as you're working with them, listening to what they're saying when they're making new inquiries, jotting them down, or just brainstorming what actually is their problem when they're coming to me, and understanding where they hang out is key as well. So one type of audience might be hanging out on Facebook if you're a local business, but then another type of audience, which is a bigger business, might be hanging out on LinkedIn. They might be wanting to do webinars. They might want workbooks and things. So understanding the different places to hang out and plotting them. And then the first place to start, which I think is answering Paula's question, is plot out your existing processes. This can be just a couple of hours just working out what you do at each point. And you could do this over a series of days as you're doing your work, because sometimes you need to actually be doing things to work out what your processes are. So I think understanding what you already have in place and what you already do is the first point. And it might be over a week or so, but you don't have to necessarily sit down and do it. Or you could dedicate an afternoon to just sit down and figure it out. What do I do here? What do I do here? What do I do here? Because you've got your different stages plotted out. So it kind of breaks it down into a lot of sort of bite-sized chunks, which makes it easier.
I'll add a bit of my experience on that, if you don't mind, Fliss. So it's something I'm doing at the moment, doing this type of thing. And what I found was that I spent some time kind of, I guess, mind dumping to a certain extent, getting things out of my head and thinking where I think I am. But then kind of just leaving it there, sat in the background a little bit. As I'm working away, I realize that not everything there's some things you just do and you don't even realize you're doing it. So to then just keep adding to it. I'm the same as you. I use Excel just because it's easiest to kind of just add on. So for me, it's kind of maybe a thing you can do as a start off process, but then it's evolving as you're going along.
Yeah, it will evolve as you go along, and you'll start to get ideas as well once you've started it. So it's not something necessarily that you do in one go. It'll evolve. And also because once you've plotted out what you do that's existing and start thinking about your actions can then turn into new parts of the process. So your customer journey will expand once you think, well, I could do that, and I could do that, and I could do that. So you work out which ones you're going to do and put them into part of your customer journey. It doesn't have to be a thing that's done in one go and is done. It can be constantly evolving as well. So you might start new services up which have a different type of audience. So then you need to sort of evolve what you're doing at each stage. Here I've put number 4, how can you support your existing clients? This is always a good place to start actually on your customer journey. You've got your existing clients. It seems a bit mad, but do you actually start with the end of your customer journey first? What do I do for my existing clients? How can I keep them happy? How can I keep them happy so that they sign on with me again next year, for example? And I think that's probably a worthwhile place to start, because you've already got them. So if you keep them happy, A, they might re-sign, and B, they'll probably refer you. And then what can you do to add value and make your life easier? So the whole point of your customer journey is you're documenting what you do at each stage. You're trying to make your life easier and the process is, but how can you add value to your clients? And this is your actions. So once you've plotted out what you do, how can I add value at the beginning awareness stage? How can I add value when I'm quoting? Do I give them a free half an hour, for example? Do I give them a worksheet? And then that starts to put your actions in, and then that in turn turns into your customer journey. So I don't know if I really answered Paula's question there. It doesn't have to be a long, complicated thing. You can just plot it out simply and as you go along.
I think from my experience, the hardest bit was starting. Kind of once you've started and you've kind of I found I did it with someone else. It was quite useful because they kind of asked me questions as I was saying things. That maybe that's something that'd be useful for somebody, just to, whether it's just someone you know well, or it doesn't really matter, but just kind of talk it through a little bit. You get it down, and that's the starting point, and then the rest of it starts to fall into place a little bit over time.
Yeah. And if you've got touch points at the beginning of your customer journey, that's actually a really good place to start, because you know how you interact with your customers and you can start to see where they might find you. Or when I'm doing a trial stage, this is where they're, it's in person, or it's over the phone, or it's over Zoom. So that's a really good starting point. I mean, I'm happy if anybody wants to bounce ideas off me. I'm happy to have a bit of a chat and ask a few questions. I've done a few before where people have started filling them in, and then we've just got together and I've gone, well, what have you thought about doing this at this stage? Because what are they doing here? And they've gone, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. So I did one with, her clients were really busy, and this was at the delivery stage. So I said, well, how can you add value to, if they're busy, how can you make their life easier, and what can you do for them at that stage? And that started bouncing ideas off her.
Yeah, brilliant. So thank you. I mean, Helen's mentioned there, she does customer journeys as part of the content design work that she does, and start to adapt that to e-learning as well. She builds them on a board in Miro. Something I don't know about. And she's got a generic one that she's more than happy to share with people. So, although she said it doesn't look as pretty as yours, Fliss.
I've got a Google Docs spreadsheet, which I just use for my customer journeys, which is really simple, and I can share with people as well, because you can just type into it anywhere if something comes into your head. And that's why I find spreadsheets really easy, because it's just there as you're doing other things as well. It doesn't have to be pretty.
No. Well, that's brilliant, Fliss. Obviously, we've had lots of questions that we've been going through, which has been fantastic. I mean, before we finish, I wonder if anyone else has any questions. We're getting a few really nice comments saying how good this session's been and things to think about.
Glad it was useful.
Obviously, this session is recorded as well, so I will be making it available afterwards for people. I'm sure there's bits. I know I've already got a few things I want to go back and listen to and kind of digest a little bit. It'll be made available as a recording once I've downloaded that, so people can do that. Or I'm sure Fliss, you'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Definitely, just give me a ring or drop me an email if you've got any questions, and happy to help. Yeah,
well, most importantly, thank you very much, Fliss. It's been really, really good, really, really insightful. I think by the sounds of it, a lot of people have got some real good value from it. So thank you, and obviously thank you for everyone watching. I know there'll be a number of people who watch this afterwards as well, so probably not a chance to ask any questions, obviously, because they're watching it on playback. But if you do, I'm sure Fliss will be more than happy to field those as we go through.
Yes.
So yeah,
I will. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your time, and have a good rest of your day.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.